Cyclers. This is Linda Riesenberg Fisler, and I have the honor of interviewing Claudia Nix. What I wanted to do is talk to her a little bit about the history and how we got started with it. But welcome, Claudia, to the podcast. Glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how the Blue Ridge Bicycle Club got started.
Oh, wow. It goes back quite a ways. Let me give you a starting. Mike and I, for one, have always been a bicyclist, a bike rider, I should say. As a kid, we got bikes. My parents bought one too big for me, but I learned how to ride on a neighbor kid's bike, and I always rode my bike. But then, when you become a teenager, you get involved with so many other things that it kind of went by the wayside. And when I went to college, my dorm mother had a 3-speed bike that she rented out to those of us in the dorm for $0.25.
Oh, wow.
And I left Warren Wilson College on that bike and rode out Warren Wilson College Road to Swannanoa and just was thrilled about seeing the mountains and being out there. And I came back in and just so excited. So after my husband and I got married in 1970, he had to do his active duty. And while he was down in Columbia, South Carolina, his commanding officer, decided he was going to ride his bike to work and save some money. And he rode it to work one day. And it was so hot down in Columbia that he threw the bike down and said, "This is for the birds. I want to get rid of this. I'm not going to do this." And Mike heard that and he says, "I'll buy it." And that got him into riding. And it was so exciting. He came back home and said, "We're getting you a bike and we're going to start going out and riding." So we did. Cool. And we were living at the time in Otine in the scenic mobile home park, and trying to ride on Highway 70 was not fun. We did go out Riceville Road, but dang, that was scary. The road was so narrow and no shoulders. And oh, wow. Well, we were just having troubles. Yeah. And I started working in 1974 for the YWCA on South French Broad Avenue downtown.
Okay.
And it was a fun time. I was the health and physical education director for the Y. They were starting to expand the building and to have a swimming pool and a gym and all this stuff. And it was an exciting time because I was in the development of stuff. And we started the Women's Center. We started the Rape Crisis Center. We were just doing things that was exciting. And I started reading an article in the Bureau. It was the Outdoor Magazine. And Jeff Verryhill with the Bureau of Outdoor Recreation had this wonderful article about bike lanes and the money that's available to develop bike lanes, and that cities could apply for this money and they could start making changes to their roadways so that it was more comfortable for people to ride bikes. And bicycling was starting to take off in the 70s. And I got so excited because I thought, this is the possibility to make it more fun. And so I wrote him a letter, and he called me back and he said, "We have this road show that I'd like to bring to Asheville. And it's with me and Curtis Yates, who is the director of the bicycle program for the state of North Carolina." And I said, "Wow, that's exciting." He said, "Are you willing to organize a meeting for us to tell y'all about the possibilities of the funding for bike lanes? And I said, sure. Yeah, I'll be glad to do that. I was in the mode of organizing things and organizing events. So I said, sure. And so he told me what kind of people to invite. And I wrote letters and called up people, city council members, boards of the county commissioners and general public. We put articles in the paper and just whatever I could think of. And we had this meeting and we had like 50, 60 people that showed up at the Y, which was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And listened to all these possibilities. And so at that meeting, I said, well, okay, folks, what do you want to do? And they kept saying, well, let's develop an organization for our community that can work on this. I said, okay, that sounds like a good idea. And the Y would be glad to host it. We can have meetings here. And so there must have been 10 or 12 people that's ended up showing up for these meetings. And out of that, they said, we need a name for this organization. I said, okay. And it turned out that we said, okay, let's call it Asheville Bikeways, because that's what we want to do. And we started meeting and having these different discussions about how do we get money? How do we get, we've got to get people involved. We got to get more people riding so that they can see, the powers that be can see it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Because very few people were riding bikes. It was really scary. I mean,
yeah,
it was scary then. It's scary now. But my whole awareness has changed in the possibilities. And Mike got he applied to be a League of American Bicyclists educator.
okay.
To teach bicycle education. And he was teaching middle school at the time, which made sense. And we started teaching classes on how to safely ride your bike.
Mm-hmm.
And then I decided, well, I might as well get that certificate also. And in the 6 months between when he got his certification and when I got mine, he was number 52. I was number 105. So that was a lot of people were starting to become cycling instructors. And so we would put on classes at the Y on how to appropriately ride your bike so that you would follow the rules of the road and be a little bit more recognizable as a responsible person.
Mm-hmm.
And, the club was sort of floundering around. We grow a little bit, we get a couple more members, but it wasn't huge. And then by it just kept going. And I guess about 1977, the state of North Carolina developed a cross-state mapping surface for bicyclists. And you could order these maps for free. And they had the cue sheets so that you could go on a tour and ride from the mountains to the sea. And so there was a group of 10 of us that decided in the club, let's do this. We had missed 1976, which was Bike Centennial. Mike and I had planned on riding across the country, but we just couldn't organize. We couldn't get it organized at all.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't do it. And we said, well, let's start and ride across North Carolina. So, but when we went to the shops, there was no one selling bicycle touring equipment. There was no one would order it even for us.
Mm-hmm.
So Mike had gotten paid $500 for developing a program to teach kids in the public schools bicycle safety.
Right.
And we had done a ride with these kids up to Mount Pisgah, which was really fun.
Oh, nice.
We spent the night. The parents took the camping gear up there for us. And it was just a ball.
Yeah.
So we said, we got to do this. And we applied for the maps. He took all the money that the 10 of us were going to spend on equipment. And plus his $500, he got himself a license to sell equipment. And we started the bike shop out of our house.
Right. So you and Mike are the owner of Liberty Bikes on Hendersonville Road, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We are. But it started in 1977 in our house. Just because we needed to have that touring equipment.
Right.
And then he started fixing people's bikes for them. But we did this ride across North Carolina. And it was so much fun. We ended up at the Outer Banks and spent a week at the Outer Banks afterwards, and then came back home. We didn't have to ride home.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you rode both ways.
We had a friend drive our car to the Outer Banks for us. But that really solidified a group of people for the club. And then the next year we did another ride around the Virginia Loop, which was a ball. There were another 10 of us, and that was great. So the club, I started as a program in the Y. I started leading some bike rides out of the YW. And it didn't go so well. You'd end up maybe one or two people would show up one Saturday and we'd ride around a little bit, but it took a while. It took getting this cohesive group together by doing the tour to really expand the club. And it started growing little by little. And we started getting people in all these different areas. I forgot to mention, we got Tom Redinger, who was in the club and went on that tour with us. I think he ended up being president after a while. I decided to step down and he took over. And he also got a position on the state bicycle program committee.
Right.
And that started expanding the club. We got some people from Hendersonville to be in the club. We got some people from Haywood County, and so we decided it couldn't be the Asheville Bikeways anymore. We needed to change the name.
Right.
So that's how we got the
Blue Ridge Bicycle
Club. And I think at that time we might have been meeting at the library,
right,
in downtown Asheville. I had left the Y. I was no longer working there. And we started meeting at the library.
Cool.
So, and what really got the club going, Mike and I, being members of the League of American Bicyclists, which was a national organization, we started going to these gear rallies. The Great Eastern Area Rally. And we went to the one in Middle Tennessee, and they would have 100 rides from 10 miles up to 100 miles. And I said, wow, we need to have 100-mile ride. I was hearing about all these 100-mile rides all over the country. And so I said, we can do a 100-mile ride here in Asheville, and we'll call it the Hilly Hellacious. So I started that. I think that was 82, 84, somewhere around that time period. There were 17 of us that did the ride.
17. And you look at the flyer today, right? How many people did we have for the flyer?
And I got my parents. My parents had moved down here, and I talked them into being the rest stop people.
Organizer.
And we organized the food, and we went down into Hendersonville. We rode a little bit on the Blue Ridge Parkway. They took the 191, rode down into Hendersonville, did to Flat Rock, rode all the way down through Saluda, and came back up to Flat Rock. And that's where we had our rest stop. So we could have 2 rest stops out of 1.
Right.
And my parents ran that. And we had no other people organizing, just me. I did that route. We left the clipboard on the hood of our car and had this meeting before we started. And we said, okay, when you come back in, you need to mark yourself off, put the time that you got back in so we know that everybody made it. Because I was riding too.
Of course.
We had a 100-mile and a 50-mile ride.
Oh.
And it was so much fun. That really got the club going, I think, because we advertised it.
Mhm.
The next year there were like 30 people. It just kept growing and
Right.
growing. And then it got so the Parkway put regulations. They were getting so many complaints that you could not ride on the Blue Ridge Parkway, particularly on Saturday or
Okay.
Sunday. But then you just couldn't ride at all on the Parkway.
Uh-oh.
So we had to come up with new routes.
Mm.
And then there were people that didn't want to ride that long a distance. So we made a family ride that was like 20 miles or
Yeah.
15, I forget what it was, but it just kept growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And then one of the guys in the club said he wanted to start a flat century ride. I said, great, you do it. I'm not doing it. I'm tied up with Illy. I can't do it. And that was Greg Wilcox. And he came up, he and Charlie Clogston and maybe a couple other guys came up with a route. And so we tried doing both rides. And I'll tell you, by that time, the rides were both of them, that takes like about 100 people to put on a ride.
Right.
It was too much for the club. We could not do it. So we decided to drop the Hilly, and another group took it over and said, and also what happened by 1984, there was a group of individuals that were really getting into racing, bicycle racing. And there was a group that was getting into mountain biking. And so the club started splintering a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Jim McMillan was really into bicycle racing, and he decided to form the Asheville Bicycle Racing Club. And they separated from the Blue Ridge Bike Club to have that group. And they went on for about 28 years. In 2012, they ended up dissolving because most of those individuals really were excited about racing, but they were more interested in their own self and not doing it for a whole group.
Right. Yeah,
So,
it's very interesting. I don't know how many bicycle clubs have actually made it to their 50th year anniversary, but
yeah.
I mean, you
Well,
can
and
tell
at
your
that time-
dedication is just so huge. I mean, it's your whole life has been with
It's
bicycling.
racing.
Yeah.
And a lot of the bike shops that had formed, bike shops were developing, and they'd have their own little group of racers that raced for them. So it was really splintering up a lot.
Right.
And I think it might have been sometime in the 90s that the husband of one of my employees was really into mountain biking, and he started developing. There was an organization called SORBA, which is the Southern Off-Road Bicycle Association. And he got very involved in that and decided to form Pisgah area SORBA. So that was a separate group, again, that splintered off of the Blue Ridge Bicycle Club. And they've become a really big, wonderful group that has taken over maintenance of a lot of bicycle trails in the National Forest. And they're doing wonderful stuff. and they've been growing tremendously as well.
Mhm.
So it is possible to have more than one club,
Oh,
you know,
yes, absolutely,
with
with different interests and
different
focus. Yeah,
priorities.
right. So let's talk. I mean, I just want to remind folks that are listening to this that everything that Claudia did at the beginning of this was without websites. Okay, like it's easy now. We log on to the bicycle website, we find out what rides are out there, and we go and we do that. I mean, yeah, email was probably just getting started. If I remember back when I was working, yeah, in the like late 70s, well, more actually in the mid 80s, then email started.
Yeah.
So all of this was done by phone calls and in-person meetings,
Newspaper,
newspaper.
advertisement.
Yes. So a whole different environment than what you have today to start a meeting. So that in itself, if you just think about how much work you've done to get the Blue Ridge Bicycle Club on this solid foundation, starting back in the 70s and 80s. And you were president of the club for how long, Claudia?
I can't remember.
I can't remember. Okay. But for a pretty long time, because you had your
It was a
direction
long
in it.
time, and my husband took over after me.
Right.
You know, the two of us shared that. I've always been an officer of some kind. I
Right.
ended up doing more advocacy, so I took over as the advocacy director, and we started spreading out duties because things were growing. So I remember Ed Irwin was really big into mountain biking, and so he took over the trail stuff for the club. And yeah, the dates are just all jumbled up for me anymore.
Right.
I can't
Right.
keep them straight. But
But I would say you were probably at least probably the first 10, not if 15 to 20 years, because
well, there was a time period also when we were meeting at at the library, where no one wanted to take the job
right.
as president. I had held it, Mike had held it, Tom had held it. And so we spent maybe a year where we rotated president every month, and we had a different meeting, and somebody else would be president for 2 months, and then somebody else would be president for 2 months. It was really staggered and splintered, I should say. And that was probably in the 84, 85 time period when the race club separated from us, and no one was wanting to do it. So I took it over again because I did not want the club to dissolve.
Right. Along with everything that you were doing locally, you were also working statewide, right? So you would take trips to Raleigh and meet with politicians and to make sure that the bike advocacy was on solid ground as well.
I got nominated in 90. I think it was 96, somewhere around there, to be on the North Carolina Trails Committee, which was very exciting. And we'd meet every other month down in Raleigh. And then I had wanted to be on the North Carolina Bicycle Committee, and I was nominated to sit on this bicycle committee. So I was on two committees.
Yeah.
I would go to Raleigh twice every other month. So it was sometimes the same month, sometimes staggered months. Oh, I was wishing for rail so that I could just hop on the train and ride the train to Raleigh instead of drive it. That was really a lot of work, but it was fun. One of the times I was there at the bike committee, Tom Norman was the director of the North Carolina Bike Committee, and he said to me, "Claudia, what's going on up there in Asheville? We can't get anything done. We've had this money set aside for a trail going down from Ridgecrest to Old Fort on the old Highway 70. We've had that money there for almost 10 years.
Wow.
If you don't get the thing going and on the ground, we're going to take that money away. We need to put it somewhere and have it used. I go, oh my gosh, what do I do? And I started talking to people and finding out the problem was we thought it was all owned by the National Forest. The National Forest only owned a part in the middle. There was a private landowner at the bottom of the hill, a private landowner at the top of the hill. And the person at the top kept putting up no trespassing signs, put up a gate, trying to keep people away from there. So I started asking around who owns that property. And I found a woman whose brother had sold the property to the owner. I said, can you get him to introduce me to those people? Oh, sure, I'll see what I can do. So I got an appointment. And the guy was so scared of being sued. That's why he put up the no trespassing signs and put up barricades. He didn't want anyone suing him. And I said to him, if you agree to turning it into a trail that is owned by the state, you have no worries. You can still own the property, but they will take over the liability. And he was amazed. He said, really? I said, sure, that's the way it works. And so he agreed to go to a meeting and said, would you go with me and just give me some moral support? And I said, sure, I'll be glad to go with you. And we got the commitment from him to turn it over to the state. And it became the Point Lookout Trail, which is a wonderful trail down to Old Fort.
Well, we ought to have a Point Lookout 50th anniversary ride from there.
Oh, that would be
next
great.
year.
Yeah,
I think that'd be kind of fun. So, so that all went through.
yeah.
I don't know where we'd be without your dedication and your energy, Claudia. I really don't. I mean, you've really got this started and really focused on it. And I mean, you have bike advocacy, you've done education. I suppose we still work with health and fitness organizations. Were you part of that as well? Getting that started?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And then there's a number of different bicycling programs. I know that a lot of the some of your employees were giving maintenance workshops.
Yes, for the
Club
Blues
offered
Bike
those.
Club. There was also a group of us in Buncombe County. There was this Safe Walks to Schools program and trying to get it's safer for kids to walk and bike to school. And so we developed an organization called Healthy Buncombe, which was in Buncombe County, run through the health department. And Terry March worked at the health department as a health educator, and she developed that Healthy Buncombe program. I was one of the members of it. There was a big group of us. We got several women that were nurses for the county that were in the school systems. And one of them, Tracy Armstrong, worked out at Irwin. And she got a bike club program started through there at the middle school. We taught for several years, we taught bicycle education there. And then the county schools decided to buy a fleet of bicycles, and they were we also taught a class out at Owen several times. It just was so exciting. There was so much stuff happening. But then there was evaluations made with the health departments, and they decided to get out of the health education at the schools. They gone to Mayhag. The nurses were then employed through Mayhag, and things started falling apart. It was just sad. There's still some stuff going on, and I know in Hendersonville, Joe Sanders is working a lot with the health education down there in some of the elementary and middle schools, which is good to see still happening.
Right.
And in Asheville, there's a young woman, Emmy Kubota, who started an organization, Kids Cycle, and she's teaching young children from 3 to 12 how to ride a bike. That was a thing that was amazing to us to find out how many middle school students did not know how to ride a bicycle.
Wow.
But so many in the county live on gravel roads, on these
True.
hills. It's dangerous for them.
Mhm.
There's no place for them to learn how to ride. So
Right.
we were, while we were trying to do bicycle education and having these little rodeos, we actually were teaching kids how to balance.
Yeah. So it is interesting. I mean, when you consider that probably you and I grew up riding bicycles,
Yes.
It's totally different today. But it's nice to hear that there are programs to get these kids outside, get them outside safely and riding.
Right.
Yeah. So especially in this area. So,
Oh, yeah, because there's so much rural areas
Yeah.
that are unpaved and are mountainous.
mhm.
So it makes it difficult. The other thing that was exciting during all this time period is still going on. The League of American Bicyclists
Yes.
has been promoting a lot of bike riding and bike safety, and that's where a lot of the educational programs came out. But we're seeing a lot of BIPOC people developing bicycling organizations to show that people of color do ride.
Mhm.
And that's really exciting
Yes.
to
Yeah.
see happening too. And
Hmm.
Asheville has become a bronze level bicycle friendly community. We're working to become silver or gold.
Mhm.
My bike shop is a platinum level bicycle friendly business. Asheville has many bicycle friendly businesses now. The help of Asheville on Bikes, and Mike Sewell and I have been working together for years now, getting more and more bicycle friendly businesses. So that's exciting. Oh, I got to tell you, this is
Okay.
so wonderful thing that happened that really got things moving. In 93, I became aware of the top 100 bicycle dealer program.
Hmm.
The National Bicycle Dealers Association started developing this program. And I thought, wow, what a neat thing. I told my staff, I want our business to become a top 100 dealer. This is what we have to do. And I couldn't believe it. We got nominated. Just getting everybody together with the goal of making your business really listen to people and get them excited and encouraged to be riding.
Mhm.
And you know what? That was in 93. We have been
wow.
a top 100 dealer every year since then.
Congratulations.
And
That's fantastic.
what's else is so exciting is we got several more awards. We became the top dealer. 2015 was the best dealer in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Fantastic.
mind-blowing.
Yes.
Totally mind-blowing. I don't know how we did it.
Yeah.
And then February 2010, Quality Bicycle Products is one of our main distributors. We buy a lot of parts. We buy some bicycles from them. They awarded Mike and me the top advocacy of the year award.
Well
I
deserved.
was blown away.
It was well deserved.
It just
Congratulations.
blew me away. I couldn't
Yeah.
believe it. And I called those guys up the next year and said, hey, we're working so hard here in Asheville. We really want to do some more things. With the Blue Ridge Bike Club, can you help us sponsor such and such and such and such? And they said, well, normally, yeah, but we would like to do something really special for Liberty bicycles. I said, really? We want it to be a little more personal than just for the Blue Ridge Bike Club. I said, okay. So our inside sales rep was going to have a time period where she could take off work and still be paid and come down here to Asheville to help me with my advocacy work. And I thought, wow, that's neat. And so she came down here and we started brainstorming stuff. And what we came up with is they wanted to bring, if I could give them together a group of people that were responsible, like city and county people that worked for the city and county, like the manager, the city manager, people like that.
Mm-hmm.
They would take them up to Minnesota to spend a couple days and to learn more about how they developed their bicycle program up there, their trail system that they have. They had an amazing trail system. And I said, oh, wow, we could do that. And I talked to the rest of the board for the Blue Ridge Bike Club, and they agreed we wanted to help with this.
Right.
If we could get a team of people from the area, our region, Land to Sky region, which includes Buncombe County, Henderson County, Transylvania County, Madison County, Haywood County. There's 5 regions,
Right.
5 counties in this region.
Right.
If we could get somebody from each one of those main cities or counties to attend this meeting, the Blue Ridge Bike Club would pay for the fee for them to fly up, pay for their transportation from Asheville to Wisconsin.
Okay.
Quality bicycle component products would pay for everybody's hotel room, would pay for everybody's food, would take them in meetings and on tours along the trails, pay for the transportation locally. We had a group of people. We got them to travel together. Joe and Peggy, his wife, Mike and myself, and Kathy Ball from the city of Asheville, who was the city assistant manager, our mayor, who at the time was just a city council member, Mannheimer, she went. We had somebody, and I forget the guy's name, from Henderson County, who was a planner for the city. We had somebody from Haywood County. We had somebody from, it was just amazing. We had people from each one of those different, 5 different counties.
Right.
We went up there, spent the night. First, we flew up there. We took the train from the airport to downtown, and we walked from the end of the rail to the hotel, and we're met. And they said, okay, folks, get your rooms, put your stuff away, and meet us in this hotel lobby. We sat down, we had a talk, we got on bikes, we rode some trails. The next morning we did the same, and we rode our bikes that night out to another place for dinner. And then the next day we rode again, and then that afternoon we flew back. And on the plane coming back, Kathy Ball said to me, wow, I can see now that we can do this in Asheville. we can get a trail. We can get bike lanes. It was a game changer. It made it possible for those individuals to see what they can do. And right away, that same year, Hendersonville got bike sharrows down one of their main streets in town. Asheville got bike sharrows, and we got the short little college bike lane. It was a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all because I got that award. And the bike club saw that this was a profitable thing to do.
Mm-hmm. And so you started out, I think the number that you said back in 73, 74, somewhere in there, you had like 17 people, and now we're over.
We got 1,000.
We're not done doing anything. Or, the advocacy, everything, safety, all of that is still on the top of the list. You probably have grown from maybe 3 or 4 people on the board. We've got 22 people on the board now. You have elected officers, and then you have appointed officers. And like you said, you have backed off from being on the board per se, but you are a Buncombe County representative. So advocacy for Buncombe County is still very much a part of your life.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yeah.
What do you think about the growth of the club? Did you imagine that it would be 1,000 people joining this club when you started this out?
Oh, no. No. I mean, I wish for it, but gosh. And this year, this year that we're in now, the Blue Ridge Bike Club was recognized as the Bike Club of the Year as well.
Fantastic.
From the League of American Bicycles.
When you and I are from Ohio, you came from Cleveland, I came from Southwest Ohio. We know that there's bike trails up there, a number of miles, over 300 miles of bike trails up in Ohio. But what really struck me from moving from Ohio to moving down here was this club. I mean, it made such a difference for Tom and I when we moved down here. We've met friends through the club. Bicycling is, as much as it was a part of our life in Ohio, it's very much a bigger part of our lives now that we're down here. So 50 years, we thank you for your advocacy, your determination to make sure that this club became the success that it is. And we look forward to working with you, in the coming years. I know that you have retirement on your list of things that you want to do. So maybe we'll see you out on more bike rides
hopefully
in the future. Yeah. So I enjoyed riding with you on Tuesday and hearing the history of your husband's homestead down where were we? We were, I can't remember the area. Canton. Yeah, we were in Canton. So it was interesting hearing that. So if you end up riding with Claudia, or if you see Claudia, make sure you say hello to her and hear about the history and the work that she put in to it. It was wonderful to have you on the podcast, Claudia. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Linda. It's great. I've enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, it's been fun hearing about the history of everything. So tune in next time. We'll have a couple more of these podcasts with some other folks who were very key in keeping the Blue Ridge Bicycle Club together and where it is today. And, we hope to see you guys out on the roads. Take care, everyone. Thanks, Claudia.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.